Yes, we are.
Okay. I'm going to call to order the special meeting of the Perry Township Board of Trustees, 1 p.m. Ms. Taylor, can you take roll, please?
Trustee Wen,
Yes.
trustee Hartshorn,
Yes.
trustee Mears.
Missy, did you say yes?
Yes. Am I muted? Oh,
You
sorry.
were. You were quiet, I guess.
Yes.
Okay. So pending, or not even pending, following the termination of Ms. Bankin based on her resignation, we've got a couple different things we need to go forward with. We are kind of in limbo at the moment. Anu, can you advise, did we decide if we should go into executive session to discuss?
That is up to the board, whether they want to go into executive session or not. Someone would have to make a motion for that.
Jason and Missy, what are your thoughts? And we've got a couple things we need to discuss, like the fiscal hub account, who wants to monitor that? Jason, I assume you're going forward with the fire levy information. We need to discuss, the revaluation money, and did we determine where that went? And we never came to conclusion on the CARES Act and the revenue thing and who's going to follow up on that. Not to mention the UAN and bringing in somebody to do payroll and so forth. Given certain situations that are taking place, I don't know how soon we can do those things, and I don't know what we're at liberty to discuss in an open forum.
So some of the low-hanging fruit, I guess, let me jump in here on some of this. The fire levy, I don't have to do. I just basically had been talking to Mr. Hartlov about a number of things, and that came up because I never saw anything after Rhonda had reached out to them regarding doing a levy in November. So I wanted to make sure that we got that document, and he sent it to all three of us. So I don't want anyone thinking that I was jumping on that. Also the hub, we all have access to that. We can see it. There's no issue with that. It's read only. It just gives us a breakdown of historical appropriations and funds coming into the township. As for a UON person, I don't think that between the two options that we have, basically there's two people in Montgomery County that we could tap, two traveling clerks we could tap. We couldn't get them probably active and everything else by Tuesday anyhow. So the question there is, do we need someone local or not? Because basically regardless of who we choose, they can remote in to the UON software, do our payroll, do our bill pay. The difference is that for the bill pay, we're going to have to send things. We're going to have to scan things and send them to them because they will be remote. So that's a challenge. One of the challenges I don't have an answer to yet is that I don't know if having two trustee signatures is enough on a check to get it signed without a fiscal officer's signature. So if they're working remote, I think the way that it was explained to me is that there shouldn't be an issue. Keyword shouldn't. We should have to talk with LCME Bank and find out if the two trustee signatures is sufficient to be able to get payroll check signed.
I called the bank, and as long as there are all three of us sign it, there have to be three signatures.
Okay, there has to be three. Okay.
Yeah. So in the past, it's been two trustees and the fiscal officer. So if all three of us sign it, it should be okay. We may want to double check that again, but that's what the bank branch told me.
Okay. So we can basically start planning for remote clerk if we want to. A couple recommendations came in. I mean, basically there's one guy that's nearby local, one guy who's not local, but comes recommended. And then the two people that are clerks, one is for the Germantown Germantown Township, I believe, and the other one is for Wright Memorial Public Library, possibly. And for those, we'd have to reach out to people. The other option is that we can work with the bank and actually make checks out to the employees. If things end up dragging out, okay, we can actually write checks to the employees for their payroll based on their last paycheck, right? No withholdings or anything else. Basically, we would pay them what their net was on take home, and then deal with the withholdings and everything else retroactively. That gets a little messy, but that was a recommendation from the auditor's office. So it's in bounds. It takes a lot more work after the fact. So I think that if we can get someone lined up based on who's available to us, we should be able to do that. The two people for the remote clerks, so there's a link on the, let's see which one was which here. So there's two different links that were provided. One was for visiting clerks, which is what they call the traveling clerks. And that identified two people, Mr. Richard Ford out of Mad River and a Mr. Tony Pranger, who used to work with the auditor's office and is now available as a consultant. Both come recommended. The only difference is Mr. Ford is closer to the area. Mr. Pranger is not. And as I said, in Montgomery County, the two people, and I don't have these in a very good, actually, let me try to pull these up. Hold on one second. We'll do this.
While you're doing that, I also spoke to John Morris multiple times, and he said that there are also fiscal officers from other townships that will step in for us and help out. Jefferson Township is the closest one to us that uses the UN software.
Right. And so anyone who has a UON user can basically log in because there's a remote software that's embedded that they can use to do UON remotely. The difference is we've been told that multiple people can do it, but then the auditor, the director of UON said that, we're best to stick with those that are published as both the traveling clerks as well as the identified clerks that could help remotely within the different counties. So I'm going to share this.
I have been granted access to the software, but haven't been able to obviously do anything with it because we couldn't get onto it and
right.
Can't go
Well,
in there.
and the key here is that if you're not trained, you shouldn't be on it. And
Agreed.
we want to
I
make
don't
sure
know what I'm
that we
looking at.
have, right. There are multiple extreme options, but the training is the limitation, right? So on this URL for the visiting clerks, they actually show a map of where everybody's located around the state, right? So this is Mr. Ford right here. And his information is down here, Mr. Ford. And it gives his email address as well as him being in Mad River Township in Champaign County. So we also have Mr. Pranger. Oh, wrong line there.
And you said they do not need to be in our office or in our building to do that?
No, they can remote in. The traveling clerks are enabled with that. The key is that all of our tax information, withholdings and benefits and everything else is in the software in Rhonda's former office. So they need to be able to connect to that to process payroll.
And we have no idea when that will be available, correct? If ever, right?
Early next week.
Okay,
So I would say probably about Wednesday, we'd be able to have someone, if we start talking with someone now, we could probably have someone ready to connect middle to late next week to be able to at least run payroll. Then we'll figure out the logistics of the bills and the payments, because that will require transmission, either scanning and sending, which is probably the most efficient, or putting them in an envelope and mailing them. So, and they would still have to scan them on the other side. So I think if we just scan them and send them, we'd be okay there. The other link that was provided, and I'll send an email with these links in it, was this one, which is the library directory, where basically it lists everybody, and it includes libraries, special districts, townships, and villages. And when I went down to Montgomery County, like I said, there's only 2 people listed here. So I don't know if that's a certification that they get to be able to be on this list, but I don't see any other townships on this list. So the only 2 from Montgomery County are Wright Memorial Public Library and Germantown. Well, that's Germantown Public Library, I believe. So those are the 2 people from Montgomery County listed here as other assets that could help us. So I honestly believe, with all the information that's been provided, that the traveling clerk is the best way to go, because this is what they do full time. I believe Mr. Maloney had told me that I don't know what the going rate is verbatim. He said around $20 an hour is usually what you pay for a traveling clerk or someone to basically do this work for you. So that said, I think we have these 2 people here. Mr. Ford is established. We could contact him first. No guarantee he's even available. And if he's not, we could reach out to Mr. Pranger and check his availability. A little bit more work with Pranger because he is further away. So if we're scanning stuff in, it doesn't really matter. If we're going to take stuff to him, he's further away, that kind of a thing, right? Since we haven't done this before, we don't know what the logistics are necessarily going to be or what format they need stuff in. I'm just kind of shooting from the hip on how we get information from point A to point B to be able to execute bills for the township. So with that said, thoughts, comments?
well, when I spoke with John Morris in one of our conversations, he was kind of surprised to hear that we're still using the UAN software and asked why we don't have something like QuickBooks or third-party software. And I was under the impression we couldn't do that, but that might be something we're going to need to look into also.
The key is that with the UON software in the PC, you get full coverage support. You get dedicated PC support, you get dedicated UON support. If you're able to basically run with QuickBooks and be a wizard with it, yes, you could definitely do that. That's why the state provides this, is because it provides that level of support to ensure that you're not operating without a net. So there are other options that we could definitely use and investigate. But at this point in time, I think we've done it just because the support that's been in place, and it reduces risk.
Well, and I'm just saying, not just QuickBooks, but like Paycor or any of the payroll things. So, there is no bind. Do you think we should reach out to Clay Township, because they went through this also, and ask what they did and get their suggestions?
We could do that as well. I would say we have a little bit of time here, but I wouldn't want to step much further than starting to reach out to people early Monday, just because we're now past the point of mid-month payroll. So
I think on Clay Township, Mr. Lambert, he gave 2 week notice, and then I think they hired Holly Buchanan back, and she did it before. So
yeah.
And if
Yes, I know.
we're talking about just for temporary fix right now, as far as visiting clerks, but hopefully this will have someone permanently in place. I mean, the township needs to follow the section 503 of the code, 503.24, which allows the trustees to put somebody in place within 30 days.
Yeah,
So-
absolutely. We'll be
Yes.
posting it and getting somebody in as an interim fiscal officer as soon as we can do that. Right now, because of everything else going on in the office, we can't bring anybody in.
Has anyone notified the Board of Elections yet of the vacancy in the office?
I don't believe so.
Not yet, no.
Someone needs to do that. That's pursuant to revised code section 507.051. Now that is a duty of the fiscal officer normally to notify the Board of Elections, but someone's got to do that.
Okay, I can reach out and do that this afternoon.
Okay.
So yeah, the key here is to for the short term, to get someone that can help us keep day-to-day fiscal operations active. Even once we appoint someone, there's going to be a period of training that's going to be required. So our need is probably twofold in that regard. So do we want to, is there any objections to reaching out to the 2 traveling clerks that have been identified to find out their availability? And then coordinate via Karen to, I mean, there may only be one, so notify or communicate via Karen as to who we're going with. I don't know, Anu, do we actually need a resolution for a temporary traveling clerk to be hired? Or would that be more once we know the rate and everything else?
I mean, you can make take a vote on whether this is the avenue you want to take. And then, again, a lot of this is going to depend on what the availability is of these individuals. But I think that if you want to be clear, maybe there's a resolution and take a vote on whether this is the way you want to go. And
Right.
then from there,
And then we would have a resolution basically when we want to hire someone. So we would
Yes.
have another special meeting just to basically hire this person, and then we would work the logistics of actually getting them what they need. Okay.
correct.
Tracking. Okay. So that said, any other comments about going forward with a traveling clerk?
The sooner the better.
Okay. Then
And
I'll make a,
Jason,
oh,
if
go
you
ahead.
wanna- Do you mind following through and heading that part of it up, since you've already got that ball rolling and you understand all of the,
I can, and I'll make sure I keep everybody in the loop. I had spoken with a couple people today, and I want to make sure that people understand that regardless of who picks up the phone, things are very fluid right now. So I don't want anyone thinking that, somebody's coming to this trustee or this trustee. We're all coordinating through Karen as we get different information. So we're more going with the fluidity of the situation than any one person actually being overall running point. Although Mindy is the president and she's been doing a lot of stuff around this topic. So just want to make that clarification. Whoever picks up the phone, we all pass it back through each other and coordinate through Karen. So that way there's no confusion about the process, right? So
yeah, like I said, I just need to be kept in the loop, because I'm getting caught off guard by phone calls that
mhm.
I didn't know anything about. I'm not getting email from Karen. So this morning she asked me about, I guess, this visiting person from UAN and the email she had forwarded, and it just wasn't there. So I
Right.
didn't know anything about it. And then when the OTA called and started asking me questions, I didn't know what to say because I knew nothing about where we were, what was going on. So, yeah, I just need to be kept in the loop. So when my phone is ringing off the hook, then I can at least
Right.
answer these folks.
So I'll tell you, anytime someone calls me, I'm sending an email through Karen to be distributed, because I don't want there to be, I don't want to be a single point of failure. I want to make sure all the information's known to avoid exactly that. So if anything happens just from the hip, understand that the context is that regardless of who is called, the information is getting where it needs to get. And I think that keeps us all able to step up whenever is necessary, as long as we all have the information. So that's how I'm going to operate, and make sure that everybody, you two, have the information you need with any interaction that I have.
In the emails that I have received today, I have forwarded them to all three of the trustees. So I'm not sure what's going on with the emails not coming, but I have forwarded them.
Yeah, I've gotten no emails today from Karen.
And I think I've sent you 3.
Yep, nope.
Okay.
Well, I guess before we go ahead, I'd like to go ahead and make that motion for Jason to reach out for a traveler and get that process going.
I'll second.
Trustee Wynn,
Yes.
trustee Mears,
Yes.
trustee Hartshorn.
Yes. And with that, I don't think there was any other topics about the near future here. I think that gets us past what we needed to get past today. Is there any other topics, subtopics under this situation that we need to discuss?
Well, are we going to be placing an ad in the paper, or can we? What are we?
Talk about that.
We're
Yeah.
gonna have to do that, yeah. We have to put an ad in the paper and post that we have a vacancy. If people are interested,
And-
they'll have to appoint someone.
Right. And the vacancy is until the November election, right, per the ORC. So they would still, if they wanted to continue, they would have to submit all of their information to the Board of Elections and go that route as well. So yeah, as long as we make that clear, Karen, have you've posted stuff with the newspaper, correct?
Karen just muted herself.
I'm sorry. What was the question?
I wanted to make sure that you'd be able to post this with the newspaper, the availability. Once we write something, we'll write something up, we'll coordinate it through you. And then once all 3 trustees sign off on it, would you be able to submit that with the newspaper?
Yes, I can take care of that.
Okay. So we shouldn't need a resolution for the submission of an ad, or do we?
Mm-mm.
No, okay, excellent. Was there anything else? Okay. Well, with that said, I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
Trustee Mears,
Yes.
trustee Hartshorn,
Yes.
trustee Wynn.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate you coming in on a Friday afternoon. Thank you, Anu.
Thanks, Anu.
Thank you.
Bye.